Welcome to Fresh Tech Tips. I am Derrell Noris, CEO of Fresh Tech Solutions. And today I have some of my awesome business partners with me today.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Mbaezue-Daniel, founder of Aegis Project Management LLC.
And I am Dr. Doug Franklin, CEO and co-founder of Deck Launch LLC. How are you guys doing today?
Doing awesome, man. Doing awesome. How you doing, Doug?
You mean Nick?
No. We never ask about how Doug's doing.
Oh, well, that's right. That's right, Doug. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I did want to give a quick shout out to Ride Labs and Rolling Out for inviting us to the Innovation and Brand Evolution panel on Saturday. It was great to be able to share the floor with Chaz and Lindsay, and hopefully we get to do more stuff like that. It was definitely cool to be able to speak to a community that is interested in tech. So it was like doing Fresh Tech Tips on a Saturday. I get to do it almost like twice in like 72 hours. It was cool.
Double dipping.
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So let's go ahead and get the show started, get the party started. And today's Fresh Tech Tip topic is the cost of a customer. So Nick, you know I love your beautiful definitions. What does the cost of a customer mean to you?
Thank you, Derrell. So when I hear that question, what it means to me is that customers are not free, first of all. It's not free. So it's just really much more about how much resources is it going to require to acquire a new customer? As a tongue twister, how much resources or resource is going to be required to acquire a new customer? And that's for you to engage them, to convert them to sales, and then retain them as a customer and extending the lifetime value of that customer. And then also, whenever I think of cost, there has to be value associated, because you don't spend money or spend any resources if you're not getting something in return. So is the return on investment going to be good enough for what you're going to spend to get that customer? Those are the things that I think about.
Yeah, and with customer acquisition costs, generally we talk about it from a financial standpoint, and that's a lot of what our focus is going to be. But remember, even if you're doing things that don't necessarily cost you money out of your pocket, they do cost you value with regards to your time. That's one of the things we always talk about on the show. And one of the things, and the reason why it just kind of, I'm really fired up about this show, is that I actually read an article on Medium where they tried to tell you that I didn't spend anything. It was like I didn't spend anything on marketing until I made my first $100,000. No, you did. You spent a lot, and it was time, and you could have possibly made more money if you figured out the customer acquisition cost of your time. But that's probably worth it for a whole nother show, isn't it?
Oh, man,
there he goes doctoring again.
Look, there he goes, man. But I love that because it's so true. Because there's so many hidden costs that they don't have to be hidden. But if you just kind of intentionally think about these things, then you can really get down to those true numbers and see what you're really actually spending. Because nobody has a zero marketing budget and making $100,000 is impossible.
There's no way. No way.
You had a conversation with somebody. You talked.
Yeah.
Something happened.
and I mean, still with that, and we're talking about customer acquisition costs. Just you always got to know what you're paying for, and it's really similar to what we talked about when we talked about restaurants. How your hamburger is not necessarily going to cost $10, like a Fuddruckers.
What goes into it?
But is what goes into it. And so you might be paying the same $400 or $500 for Facebook or Instagram ads a month or every 2 months that someone else is. But what happens if your customer is not the one that fits that? And those are some of the things that you have to think about, particularly when you're spending in sales and marketing.
Exactly, because usually you're going to make a decision to focus on a specific target. So there's money left off the table. So if you go with the wrong option, not only did you lose the resources that you just spent there, but you lost the opportunity to try and reach out to the other people, because most of the times you can't do both at the same time unless you have unlimited resources. Then who does?
And that's why
Right.
target market is so important, because you have to know exactly where to put that money at, and that kind of goes back into the whole customer acquisition cost. If you have something that's not working, it's still a cost. Some people don't even record that. I mean, it's because it didn't work. It doesn't mean it didn't cost you anything.
That's a fact. That's a fact, and that's why we're talking about this. A big thing of all the stuff that we talk about. I mean, that's why we use resources, because time, relationship equity that you are going to spend to get customers. But the things that you can track money-wise, financial-wise, the things that you can track, you need to track them so that if you're using them improperly, you can stop before it goes too far. So that's really what this is about. And also allowing you to refocus, see, okay, this is how much I spent to get this customer. Was it valuable? Was it enough that I need to refocus? All that. So you can't just put money in there until something good happens, until you get, it needs to be a scientific method, or at least an organized approach, not just throwing money, and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I guess the biggest takeaway that we can give people for customer acquisition costs is what we tend to do with our clients, and even, things that our mentors tell us, is basically understanding who are you really working with? Not necessarily, and we're not talking about saying, oh yeah, well, I'm interested in adults between the ages of 26 to 41. What do they like? As far as you can get it, if you can get down to what their purchasing decisions are, what they like to eat, where they want to go, and those are things that are very easily found on the internet. If you do your research, you'll be able to pick out insights that are very valuable, that will allow you to select the right way to be able to talk to your customers and thus minimize your customer acquisition costs.
Yeah. So let's. I love. So did we touch on how to calculate the customers?
No. That we just set the table. We were just setting the table. Now it's time to eat. So
okay.
Let's define customer acquisition costs first, and then let's just talk about how to calculate it. So customer acquisition costs, just like it says, it's how much it costs to win a customer, for them to purchase a product or a service from you, whatever that amount is. And that goes across whatever you're spending on sales, marketing. You're going to be able to touch on time. So we talk about time as an arbitrary thing, but if you have people who are spending hours, or people who are salary who you're paying to work on getting these customers, that's time that you can account for. So all that financial investment that goes into being able to get that one customer, or those number of customers, is what we're talking about with customer acquisition costs. And the formula, and you guys will be able to research this. You just want to talk about the tenets or the concepts, but you can look at it, and the formulas range in difficulty based on your industry, type of business, the amount of customers, and so on and so forth. But basically, it's amount of money spent in sales, marketing, and any direct endeavors that go towards getting customers, divided by the number of customers that you are getting.
So, okay, so as far as customer acquisition costs, as far as the formula, how can that help, knowing how to calculate, and how can we get people to do this without it being too overwhelming for them?
So the easiest way to go ahead and do this, if you're sitting at home like, oh, this is a great idea, it's pretty much as easy as just loading up an Excel sheet, figuring out how much money you spent in marketing. Just start with a month. Just start with last month. Look at all your earnings for last month, and then divide it by the amount of customers that you had last month, or even just put it in a calculator and just see what happens. Write it down on paper.
Back of envelope works.
And I mean, ironically, that's what we call it, back of the envelope.
No.
But it's really just that easy. And then you can spread it out over 3 months, over 6 months, over 9 months, over the year, over the last 2 years, over the lifetime. But start small so you can see what that really means. But the coolest thing is if you start to do this, every day you look at the customer acquisition costs every month, you'll be able to see some cool trends. Maybe you'll see some seasonality. But additionally, the other cool thing about doing this is that if you just do it for 12 days, do customer acquisition costs every day for each of the months that you've been in business over the last year, you'll also be able to say, okay, it was high in October, not necessarily because of this, but maybe I didn't know what I was doing with my Instagram, my conscience that month. And so you'll be able to start pulling out the details as long as you give yourself an opportunity to look at the trends. But you don't have to do rocket science. You don't need a Monte Carlo simulation. Take Excel, your calculator, just do it. Go ahead, straight. You just do it.
Yeah, and you said a key word. You said lifetime, which kind of brings me to my next point. Nick, let's talk about lifetime value. What does lifetime value mean?
Yeah, so if you guys are noticing what we've done here, we first talked about some of the things that you need to keep in mind before you get to thinking about customer acquisition costs. And then now we're going to talk about some things that you need to think about along with it or after you start thinking about it. So your customer, for most people, for some businesses, customers, maybe they make one or two interactions with them. But if you think about it, it's a lot easier or it's a lot more profitable for a customer who's familiar with you to come back and do business with you versus going out and converting somebody who has no idea what you do. So if you're thinking along those lines, it's very, very beneficial if you can get a customer to stay with you for a certain period of time. And that period of time where a customer is interacting with you, purchasing from you, is called the lifetime of the customer. So the value placed upon that is, for example, Starbucks. If you have someone who goes to Starbucks every day for a whole year, that's a lifetime value versus somebody who has just visited them 5 times in a year. That's two different amounts of 2 different periods. And then the amount of money that revenue you're going to generate from those 2 different customers is obviously going to vary. So that's what we're talking about there.
So if you ever wonder the reason why they have frequent buyer programs and Starbucks is a great example because, everybody wants to have that platinum Starbucks card, things of that nature. Those things are created because oftentimes goods and services, even though people have specific preferences, they may deviate if you don't keep them engaged. And we're always talking about engagement on the show as well. And so this could tell you how long you're keeping people around, and this is why you should consider a frequent buyer or incentive-based programs. So there are certain things where it's like, okay, there are certain goods where it is a one and done, but if you're in a service industry like ours, or even goods industries, if you want people to continue to buy your stuff, you have to figure out what to do. I do think. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask Derrell because this is something that I love most about apps. This is one thing that we try to communicate with people. So for some of those businesses where it is a transaction, someone comes in and buys something, it's different if you have a storefront and somebody has to come in there. But an app kind of bridges that gap for you. It helps not only engaging with push notifications, but also makes that loyalty program, that factor, very easy and convenient for customers, who makes it more likely for them to keep interacting with you. I just want to ask Derrell, talk about that a little bit. I know that's something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, man, and actually, this was something that I struggled with starting out, trying to figure out my lifetime value of a customer, and I struggled this because yes, we have the initial cost to develop an app, but we also do monthly maintenance fees every month, but we don't put our clients under contract. Everybody's month to month, so I was struggling with how do I judge how valuable this customer is over a lifetime when they're still ongoing. And Dr. Doug made a great point in pre-production about benchmarking. And Doug, can you run through benchmarking and your advice you gave to me as far as getting that actual number for a lifetime value?
Oh, of course. There's a lot of our business anyway, especially with you guys are listening, are startups, and so you're probably sitting there like, okay, well, I don't really have lifetime value. What does this mean? And so ultimately, what you could do is do the best that you can, either by benchmarking through what you have with regards to your numbers, and then providing a conservative projection. So, for example, we've been up and running with Fresh Tech for 3 and change, almost 4 years. So basically we know that there's a bunch of people that have stayed with us the whole time. But if you look at the market, people probably keep their apps for, maybe 7 years. And so Derrell has two choices. Either A, he could project based on the average lifetime value for people in the industry, or he could take a conservative number based on what he has from his data. We actually kind of looked through the data, and we were like, well, it's almost like 95% of people just still stick around with him. So it's probably better for him to go ahead and use the industry benchmarks. Now, if he had a whole bunch of people, then he'd have to make the decision to use his real benchmarks. But the best thing about lifetime value is that over time, you'll actually get your lifetime value as you understand what it looks like for you to retain people or not to retain people year over year.
Definitely. I love that. I actually love the benchmarking. So Nick, let's move on. I want another one of your beautiful definitions. So talk to me about payback period.
Yeah, so that's another one of those things that, like we just said, go along with lifetime value when you're looking at customer acquisition costs. And payback period is pretty much just how long it takes for your customer to pay you, and how long it takes your customer to pay you for, depending on what your industry is. If you're doing like a project or versus when you're selling something, it's going to be a different amount of time before a customer either pays you a portion or the entire fee that you're owed. And the reason why this is important is because you need money to do business. You need working capital. You need cash to reinvest in the business, to pay people for you to keep working. So if you have no cash on hand with you, you want to get that customer to convert or pay as much as possible, if not all. And this is a big reason why if you try to do a membership to, let's say, Spotify right now, they're going to say, okay, this is our monthly fee, but if you purchase a year subscription with us, we're going to give you a discount of 2 or 3 months. And you're like, well, why are they giving 2 or 3 months free? Because that larger sum, that annual sum, is more valuable to them because they want to have cash on hand for them to do business, for their valuations. It affects everything. So they'll rather give you that discount just to get that cash up front.
Man, I don't have anything else to say about that. Nick kind of just hit it on point.
Yeah, he definitely did. But payback period is really important because it can tell you something about your customers, but it can also tell you something about yourself, particularly if you're in a place where a lot of times you have multiple payments to finish a project. And so what happens if your payback period is stretched out? There's only one or two choices. It's either the customer or it's you. Ultimately, it'll tell you, am I finishing my projects on time like I say I am? Or, is my customer mix sufficient enough to actually pay the price of my services? And we always talk about know your worth. So that's one of the things that Payback may tell you, even though we're ultimately mostly worried about the cash flows. Payback can also tell you stuff about how you operate your business and who you're going after, which will bring you all the way back up to prime customer acquisition cost. So it's a service.
And target market. I love it.
Yeah, and the model in general. Yeah. The model that works. You know, if you're going to get 20 million at the end of 1 year, but you don't make it to the end of that 1 year, then it's useless. You might as well have gotten your 5 million up front and have that with you. So you have to change your model, you know, so you get a good mix, like you said, of people who are giving you some upfront, people who are back end, you know, so that you don't run out of business before you get paid.
Oh man, definitely. So let's talk about Nick. Let's talk about the value of checking these items. I mean, we kind of just laid it out there, but let's kind of sum it up.
Yeah. So I mean, when we talk about being aware of things, if you don't have goals, if you don't have tracking, if you're not tracking metrics, then you're unaware. You're making decisions blindly. You're gonna make mistakes, and it's gonna be more costly than it needed to be. So, you know, the thing that we love the most about this is that it quantifies the risk, which simply means it tells you how much risk it is. Like, tells you this is how much you're putting into this, so you know exactly going in. If I want to invest in my business, if I put $1,000, it's not just throwing $1,000 at the wall. It's like, okay, this $1,000 is actually going to be broken down, but for $5 my customer acquisition cost is $5, for example. So if I invest $1,000, I know now I'm going to get a certain amount of customers based on my history. You know, that's a lot better than just throwing $1,000 into God knows where. And then if you can go further into that, it will help you decide between, okay, do I need to spend in SEO because SEO is bringing me a customer acquisition cost or a return of this many customers, or do I need to get a new website? Or it now makes you, it allows you to deploy your resources more efficiently. And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing to us. And then if you take it to the other side, with, you know, LTV and your payback value, it allows you to know what returns to get, and then you can make plans on that, more concrete plans. Nothing is ever perfect, but, you know, you want to reduce the risk as much as possible by increasing the information.
Yeah, and on the other side of just basically like the management and the leadership part of this, because you guys are managing teams and you're trying to operate efficiently, putting the Dr. Doug hat back on, goal setting always works. And how would you be able to goal set? You'd be able to goal set by understanding your business. How do you understand your business? By knowing your numbers. No matter what consultant you go to, no matter who is on your team, you need to understand what your numbers mean so that you can set goals, daily, weekly, monthly, annual, vision and mission style goals, because the more achievable your business appears to be, the better people work in your business, the better you're able to lead and collaborate with your coworkers and your employees. So like this, you know, just tracking the stuff hits the cash flow, but it also helps you oil up that machine that is going to be making the money to begin with. So please, you know, track your items, know your numbers.
Definitely, beautifully said, Dr. Doug. And once again, I thank both of you guys for joining. I thank the audience. We really appreciate you guys' time. We know how valuable time is to entrepreneurs. So just in final thoughts, just please know your numbers and understand the cost of your customer. Please join us every week. We are here Monday at 12 o'clock-ish on Facebook Live. We are also available on all podcast platforms. Please join the Facebook group, Fresh Tech Tips. And if you need a mobile app or a pitch deck, please reach out to Fresh Tech Solutions or Deck Launch. Thank you guys for joining Fresh Tech Tips. We will see y'all Monday at 12:30-ish.